My name is Abraham Atotse. We're talking about pigging, key to pipeline operational, environmental, and technical integrity. Next slide. Like Doctor has already instructed us, it would be better if we start with definitions. And so first one will be, what is a pig? I would say a pig is a device that is inserted into a pipeline driven by the product flow throughout the pipeline from the beginning to the end and for different purposes. Immediately after that, like he said, you have already thrown out words like pipeline and so on. So you will need to go there. I mean, there's no need telling you what pigging is. Pigging is that act of inserting a pig in the line in that manner. And then we are Pipeline Professionals Association. It is good that we have an idea of what is a pipeline. What do we consider to be a pipeline? And there are different versions. People will look at it differently. What I have just penned down here may be the angle that I would like us to look at. I say, back please. The pipeline is a system of pipes and other components that are used for the transportation of fluid for different purposes, from plant to plant or facilities to facilities. But these facilities are in themselves not part of pipeline. And for a pipeline, you have to define your start point. Since we're talking about pigging, we say a pipeline starts from a pig trap to a pig trap, including the traps. But it doesn't mean that if that pipeline does not have pig traps, it is not. It is defined by the isolations, key isolations that are there. Because every pipeline is named, it is essential that we say where we are taking off from and where we are landing. Next slide. So typically, pigs are divided broadly into two categories. We have utility pigs, we have inline inspection pigs. Utility pigs are those that are meant for cleaning and for sealing purposes. And we're going to be talking about this in some level of detail later. In the inline inspection pigs are those that are, well, intelligent in nature, intelligent in the sense that they enter the line and come out to give us information. And they may give us information bordering on the wall thickness that is there. They may also give us information bordering on the ovality of the pipeline. Next slide. So, why do we pig a pipeline? Question number one. We pig pipelines, one, to ensure the safe operating condition of the pipeline. And I say here that for that person who has constructed a pipeline, at the end of that construction process, before he puts the pipeline to service, there are all manner of things that are in the pipeline. The man that welded the pieces of pipe together left a lot of welding rods in the pipe. There are so many things, his hand gloves, so many other things, wood that are still in the line, which you will need to remove before you put the line to service. That process is pigging. Now, secondly, if you put that pipeline in service, where you are drawing from, the hydrocarbon comes, and we're talking about the liquid now, comes with water of different grades. If it is an old field, you would have been coming from a well that was walked over with all manner of things. So when you mix this with crude, it gets water being denser than crude goes at the 6 o'clock area of the pipeline. This subjects the pipeline to corrosion issues because the crude in itself is acidic. The water in itself is acidic in most cases. Also, some of the feeds come with microbe issues. So if you are flowing, you have internal issues that border on corrosion. And you know what corrosion will do. It is only pigging that will remove that water that will enable you not to have formation of corrosion cells. And also, for a pipeline that you immediately constructed, you want to confirm if it came with the specifications. I'm talking about ovality issues. When you are welding your line pipes, you do this on the surface. You start doing other mechanical issues like lowering them. And these come with so many accidents. There may be a kink, there may be other things. It is a pig that will go in and come out before you put this line to service and tell you whether you indeed had a successful pipeline construction. Next slide. So when you have laid your pipe, when you have just finished welding and doing all the mechanical completion jobs that will enable you to put your pipe to service, you need a pig that has magnets on them, brushes, to go in and remove all the things that your welding man left in the line. Next slide. It comes out this way. You have a gauge plate there, an aluminum plate there, that once it enters and comes out of the line, if the line did not go straight, if there was a kink anywhere along the line, this pig will tell you exactly what has happened. Second answer, why do we pig a line? This second answer says it is to ensure maximum efficiency. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are coming from a field, you would like to evacuate what you are producing from a particular field. You want to have an idea how much, in terms of volumes, am I going to produce? How much would I need to move from one location to another via the pipeline? That enables you to size your pipeline. That enables you to say, with all of this, I would like to have a 12-inch pipeline. Now, like I said before, the reservoir is there with all manner of things. When you are pulling, you pull together with sand. You pull together with some other rubbish, water and the likes. This sand, if it is much, it has its challenges. And I just want to tell you up front, yes, the well engineer would have considered the sand issues and with technology put up things that he thinks will take care of the sand. Sand consolidation, gravel packing, putting sieves on the wells to ensure that sand does not come in. It's a lie. It's not possible for you to stop that sand from bloody entering your system. Because the sand is fine, very, very smooth. If you touch it with your hands, you won't even know. So you get to a point where when you are flowing, if you do not pig, the sand accumulates. It gets to a level where your pipe that you sized it to 12 inches, bearing in mind the volume you want to take, bearing in mind the pressure that it will operate with, it gets to a point where if you want to maintain that volume, that you will need to move to higher pressures. Those pressures may not be safe for the pipeline. So you've got to pig to remove the pipeline, the debris that is in the pipeline. So there are other deposits that with the operation of the pipeline, you have to pig in order for them to come out. Now I talk about monitoring the pipeline. As you have a pipeline, Dr. Dogu told you already, the only thing that will give you information about the line over time is that pig. If it goes in and comes out, it gives you information. An experienced man that sees a pig come out of the line will decide that, well, it looks like there's a problem here. And then he sends another pig. The pig goes in and comes out, and he said, this is confirmed. So you've got to pig your line to, even if you do not have rubbish in the line, because pipelines start from one point to another, and along the line, there are a lot of mechanical activities that go on. The road construction works, the ship that crisscross the oceans, the railway construction activities. So a lot of mechanical activities happen. And sometimes you cannot but have some level of accident. So a pig continuously coming in the pipeline, entering and coming out, will give you information about what is going on. Next slide. Gentlemen and ladies, this is a pipeline, I think 8 inches. It belongs to one of the operators in Nigeria. It had been run for quite, I think, more than 20 years, no problems. One day, the guys responsible for pigging set out to go and pig the line. They launched the pig, and they were expecting that after 45 minutes, they would have recovered this pig. 20 minutes down the line, the pipeline blocked. There was no movement. With devices, which we are going to talk about later, they located around where the pig was and cut the line. Lo and behold, this was what they got from the line. And this, they could get coming out this way when they still put pressure at the end. And I'm talking about a column that must have been more than 200 meters for a line that when they launched, they expected to recover in 45 minutes. Next slide. After evacuation and so on, it's the same line. Next slide, please. So you have this rubbish you must remove from your pipeline, and you do not know what you are taking off from. It is only when you pick that line that you know exactly how you are faring, how your wares are faring. Next slide. It may be sand like this. And if you allowed the sand to settle for some time, some calcium carbonate reactions would have happened with the sand and made this to cake and become as strong as what you are seeing here, such that to take out would have become a big challenge. And we're going to get to that. That's what you see. What is on the ground there are the pieces that one pig had gone in before and broken for you to be able to recover. Otherwise, it would not be possible for you to go in and out. Next slide. So, number 3, why do you pig a pipeline? And here the answer is in order for you to comply to legislations, in order for you to comply to statutory requirements of the land. In Nigeria here, the law says at least once every 5 years, you should pig that pipeline. So, for you to do this, you've got to arrange to pig the line. So many things happen until you ultimately run an intelligent pig in and out of the pipeline. Now, another regulatory requirement says that you cannot just wake up, construct a pipeline, and begin to operate in Nigeria. You've got to be given a license. And the licensing authorities have requirements that you meet. At the first instance, when they give you this license, they do so for 20 years maximum. Now, as you operate this pipeline, you get to a point where the 20 years time have come and gone, and you must renew the license. If the license expires and you are still operating it, there are fines that are associated with it. So there are things you should do to renew your license. Third-party discussions, stuff like that. Can you go back, please? Third-party discussions and all of that. But when you have done all of this, the issuing authority would like to confirm if in the course of the 20 years you have operated the pipeline responsibly. Gentlemen and ladies, the only thing that you can show to prove that you have been operating the pipeline responsibly is your pigging history, is your pigging information. Now, it is expected that over the 20 years' time, there would have been sections that would have lost wall thickness, but a pig in and out of the line will tell you. It is also expected that you would have done mechanical repairs here and there to upgrade the integrity of the pipeline, that pigging will tell you, these are the documents that you show to the regulatory people, the issuing authorities in Nigeria here, DPR, to be able to qualify for a license. That license comes with a duration. And whether you will be given another 20 years or less depends on what the authority feels you have operated the line. Depends on the state of the pipeline as at the time you approach them for pipeline license renewal. And the only objective evidence is the pigging information that you give to them. Next slide. So intelligent pigging is very essential. And now before now talked about intelligent pigging and say it gives you information, tells you the wall thickness. We just must see some key features on it. The reason why the pig will tell you where your problem is, if you have a wall loss, where, at what position. In pipelines, we say 12 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock. So where's your problem? And if it is a pipeline of 50 kilometers, where along the line is your problem? You have an odometer that is attached to the pipe that will tell you precisely where the problem is, and it also tells you the orientation. Next slide. So, in pigging, you have different categories of pigs depending on the problem that you have. There are times when you just finish constructing this pipeline, like I said before, you need to gauge it to find out if you have any ovality issue. And it is a gauging pig that you use. It tells you whether that man that you contracted the job of doing the constructing the line has done his job without problems. Now, the next pigs that will go in will also remove the line. And we have, depending on your problem, there are times when you just should have dual diameter in a pipeline setup. We have the loading lines that are here, most of these companies, 40 inch to 32. Now, a pipeline with sufficient is spring-loaded to take both the diameters that exist in one straight, provided you tear them the pipeline. Of course, this happens at a cost. Next slide. Now, for us, with the problems that we have in the line, like the one I showed you, where you may have a lot of sand, a lot of debris in the pipeline, there are certain pigs that you want to send in the line and recover at the end, but without problems. So you have pressure bypass. A pressure bypass pig is kitted with relief valves such that once you launch it, right from the factory, the bypass ports are meant to open when there is a pressure difference between the front and the back of about 2 to 3 bar. So once it meets that situation, the ports open, and then the fluid that is being sent from the back goes in front to jet whatever is obstructing it for it to move. And then we have where we have allowed our pipeline to continue with sand for a long time, and then we see calcium carbonate forming with the sand to form scales. You just should have the descaling tools. In the past, we used to have pinwheel, but pinwheel pig was not as intelligent as the full bore cleaning pigs. Therefore, largely what we have now are full bore cleaning tools for removal of scales. Next slide. That's the pressure bypass pig. The ones that have holes in front are the jets that once they meet an obstacle, they allow the fluid to come out and then jet the walls of the pipeline in front for you to move on. Next. That's the bypass pig now. Next. Like I said before, pinwheel pigs now, we don't use it. Some of you who are entering the industry now may not have seen it before. It's because this is not intelligent enough. It used to, with the vast amount of scarce that we had in some of the pipelines in Nigeria, it used to go in and attempt to remove all the scarce at the same time. So as you move, you just don't see, there's nowhere to move except for the pig to get stuck. Next. So we had this football cleaning tool. And this is a tool that is very familiar, is very helpful, has been very, very helpful to us in Nigeria here. Incidentally, the designers of the tool are friends to some of you. Topline is very close to one of the guys that designed it, Hydromech Panetti or so. And it's a pig that came and solved a lot of our problems. You have Obi. Obi is here. Later on, the other people who also used the pig extensively were Challenger, and while he was also with BJ Services, they employed this. This tool operates on the principle of going in, destroying what is your problem, but not taking much. It breaks the scales, moves, but does not take much. That's why it's designed like as tattered as it appears. It is one of the best pigs when you have scales as an issue. Next. So when it comes out of the line, this is the kind of thing that it comes out with. Unfortunately, what I do is that when I'm talking about pigging, I don't want to present a pig that is very clean because I'm a hands-on person. And so if you just come and start showing very neat pictures of pigs, it doesn't look like you start imagining the kind of work they do. Otherwise, there's also one pig that a lump of scare that came out of the line. I would have shown you. But with this pig, it goes in there. What you see in front are blades. That's what they call. This blades, the only role they play is that of breaking whatever the scares are, so that by the time it comes out, it comes with pebbles, what you're seeing there. Next. So the third category of pigs are the ones that solve the problem of internal inspection. Intelligent pigs are the pigs that are launched for the purpose of getting information about war loss in the pipeline. And the objective here is for us to have certainty about the integrity of our lines. It also helps us to determine the remaining wall thickness of the line. An intelligent pig gives us the base upon which we will say if there is corrosion happening and therefore at what rate. Once you launch a line, before you put it to service, it is recommended that you launch an intelligent pig there. It gives you what they call baseline. Subsequently, when you launch, wall loss would have happened at intervals. So based on that, you can say at what rate corrosion is happening. It also tells you whether you have conformed to your design aspirations. Dr. Dogo told you already that there is nothing like design life. But because if you are operating the pipeline the way you should, a pipeline should live over 60 to 100 years. In the place that I work, there are some pipelines that are older than most of us, but they are still in service. If you are operating your pipeline the way you should not have issues around how old your pipe is. If you need to pig it. If you meet an issue somewhere, you go resolve the issue and continue with the pipeline. And then another purpose is for us to comply to statutory requirements. And also, it enables us, that intelligent pig enables us to monitor corrosion growth in order for us to find mitigation for them. Next slide. So the intelligent pigs are of two categories. The magnetic flux leakage pigs. These ones operate on the principle of detecting the magnetic flux, which leaks at the points where you have wall losses in the pipeline when you have magnetized the pipe. Now, the amount of leakage that it gives you is dependent on the volume of material loss that has happened at that particular point. I have some figures there, and I don't want to go into them because when we are talking about intelligent pigs, different people have manufactured them, so they have their own requirements that are not the same. So if you are basing on it, but suffice it to say that if you have an intelligent pig enter a line and come out, there is what they call probability of detection. It can give you it is not the intelligent piggy man will not tell you they are going to give you 100% of the defects that you have in there. It may tell you that 80% of your defects will be picked. So next slide. Those are the pigs. They are longer. As you go, you start from the smaller diameter, lines, you get longer intelligent pigs because where to mount the instrument is a challenge. Next. When you move to higher diameter, this is about 40 inches, 36 inches. These ones get more compact, and you can see the odometer that I was talking about has where the central processing unit is. When launched, it has to be activated for it to travel. Move. Yeah. Mounted with sensors and magnets with drive cords. Next. So, the second category are the ones we call ultrasonic pigs. These ones measure defects based on arrival time of the UT echoes, ultrasonic echoes. As you are pigging the line, you send ultrasonic echoes into the line. If you have no problem, it goes without any issue. But once you see a wall loss, in or out, it sends the echo to the system, and that becomes picked. This one, the issue is if you launch it and recover, you have to go dig where it has picked an echo for you to go back and calibrate it to say, this is the problem. You won't need to dig all of them, but you would go to the representative sample, sometimes 3, depending on what you want to do. And the snag here is that it operates only in the liquid medium. You don't pig a gas line. If you need to pig a gas line, you shut it down, use liquid, pig it, the oil or it, and return it to the gas medium. Next. So, the pipeline that you construct, if you are going to pig it, you don't just wake up and go to start pigging it. Up front, you have to specify what you want. And this has to happen at the design stage. This pipeline is going to be pigged. So what do I want? One key thing is that it has to have uniform internal diameter all through the length of the pipe from start to finish. And by that, I mean that if you say your pipeline is 24 inches, the internal diameter has to remain so from the beginning to the end. Yes, because of codes, because of requirement, engineering standards, if you meet a river crossing, you've got to increase the wall thickness as the design requirement says. But that increase has to happen from the outside. You are not supposed to increase it from the inside. So if you launch it internally, it will remain that 24-inch line that you said it is. Now the bends, like I showed before, if your line is going to be picked, there is no way you know that if you take off from 1.40 kilometers down the line, you will go straight. Even if you have a straight line, you will need to bend to enter roads, bend to enter river crossings, bend to all manner of requirements, bend to avoid communities. So the law says that you need to have 3D bends, 5D bends, as the case may be. Here too, because of technology, a lot of industry guys have reduced that minimum bend requirement. I left it there deliberately because we still have people who are going by these numbers. If you have 1.5D bend for some of them, it is okay. Most of the intelligent pigs that we have accept that. Now we have T's. If you have a pipeline, there are times when you have to have offtakes, either bypass or drains and so on. If these offtakes will get to about close to 50% of the internal bore of the line, you've got to bar them so that your foam pig does not enter it in the course of movement, because the foam pig will just go through the next convenient place, especially if you have debris in front. Next. Valves. There is no way you will have a pipeline without having valves. But these valves, for the line to be piggable, you've got to have full bore valves. And the next slide will show you what a full bore is. We have to avoid check valves. And if you should have gate valves, those have to have through conduit. Next slide so that we'll see the valve. This is what a bore valve is. And when we say a bore valve, we say that opening up there has got to be the same as the internal diameter of the pipe. And then we say it is a full bore valve. Next slide. The pig itself cannot be launched and received without traps. So you have to have launcher and receiver in all cases, even if it is temporarily. So, and these come with their own specifications. Next. The launcher and receiver have end closures. And because they are subjected at intervals when you are expecting the pig to pressures, for safety reasons, you've got to make sure that these have devices that make it impossible for them to open under pressure. Next. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have pigging, as we have discussed, it solves so many problems. Of course, if you are carrying a lot of debris in the line and you launch that pig and sweep all the debris, the pressure the line is gumming with itself will go down. So it makes it very convenient. The pumps that are pumping through the line get it better. You who have the line feel better. But if your pig will not be professionally run, you get to a point of accident. At that point, pigging could be a nuisance. And so operators in this industry do certain things. One of the key things that they do is to make sure that they prepare for the pigging exercise. That launcher, where you launch your pig, you have to have a device that tells you if the pig has indeed moved. Where you are receiving the pig, you have a device that tells you, yes, the pig has now arrived. Along the line, sometimes at river crossings, you've got to have installations that tell you if the pig has passed here. They are called signalers. The owners of the pipeline will not feel comfortable with you if you do not have devices that will show them that that pig you launched has left that place or has not yet arrived here. So that in the event of a problem, you can decide to say, this is where you are. Now, there are so many information. Somebody might tell you something else and say, well, if you know the volume behind the pig, you can largely hazard a guess to say that this is where the pig is. But that is not enough. These instruments give you precisely where your pig is. They tell you this pig has passed here, or they tell you this pig has not come here. And they may be intrusive, they may be non-intrusive. Next slide. Also, on this pig, because of this same issue of in the event of a problem, I would like to know where is the pig in order that mechanical intervention will happen. You mount transmitters on the pig. And for God's sake, if you have a pig duration that you know should be, let's say, 24 hours, 48 hours. You've got to also build in a time lag where in the event of a stock situation, that battery life will still be available for you to locate the pig. So for all the transmitters that you mount, most transmitters come with are battery powered. So for all of them, you've got to ensure that the battery life is such that before it dies, you are able to locate the pig. And now there is a transmitter, a functional transmitter that should be with you, you who are launching the pig, so that once there is that problem with your own transmitter, you can move from along the right of way to locate the pig. What we in the industry try to do, because locating a pig can be a big problem, is to always hide under the fact that the battery life would have gone. But gentlemen, for you to be a functional, a practical person, you've got to ensure that that pig is launched with a functional transmitter, and you also have a locator with you where you can always find it wherever it is. Next slide. Now, the common method of locating a pig in the event of it becoming a stock is to walk along the line. I don't want to talk about it because sometimes it can be a nightmare. Next. So, like all operations, we have operating boundaries. If you are in the oil environment, there are boundaries. If you are for routine pigging, mechanical, just cleaning pigs, there are boundaries. If you are for intelligent pigs, you also have boundaries. Now, these boundaries operate around pressure, operate around temperature, and then speed. If you are just cleaning the line, there are boundaries. And here too, I wouldn't want to go too deep into the details. The reason being that different makers of these tools have their own boundaries. But you need to know that for intelligent pigs, the instrument makes it such that you don't go beyond a particular temperature. You also need to know that for the intelligent pig, because it is picking data, you don't want to vary the speed too much. You operate within the speed that is allowed. And the person who manufactured that pig would have specified it. So when they come to you asking you to give them, fill a questionnaire, please do so legitimately, correctly. Next. We've gone to a stage where I would say that we have demonstrated that for environmental issues, you need to ensure that you pick the line, so long as you have a pipeline. When you construct your pipeline, nothing else happens in that line except a pig. At this point, I would like to tell you that when you have finished with the pipeline, nothing else also happens except a pig. And this is according to law. The law says if you introduce hydrocarbon in a pipeline and it has served your purpose and you've got to a point where, yes, this is the life of my pipeline, I don't want to use it again. The law places it on you as a requirement that you should remove that oil in the line and leave it in the state that it was in terms of content. Please, if you just go and put water in the pipeline from one end and recover it at the other end, it's just like a market woman who sells crayfish running a gas plant. You must chase that hydrocarbon that is in the line with a pig for you to know that you have removed what is there. So you have a pipeline. The first assurance that you have is a pig in there. And you have a pipeline you want to stop using. The last thing that you have is a pig there. At this point, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to come and stand before you and tell you something technical so that you add to the philosophy you received. And I also want to thank you for your audience. Next slide. Okay, that's the end. Okay, if you have pictures, you can move to the next slide and have 1, 2, 3.